So hello friend, today I am going to be explaining about earthquake. Definition. We know that earthquake is a sudden vibration which take place on the earth's surface, and these activities just for a few seconds or few minutes, but it causes more destruction on surface. Sometimes it doesn't cause this, so we can classify it as major earthquake or minor earthquake. So suddenly develop vibration on earth's surface, that vibration we call it as an earthquake. So see the definition. An earthquake, also known as quake and tremor or tremor, is the shaking of the surface of the earth resulting from the sudden release of energy in the earth's lithosphere that creates seismic wave. So definitions suggest or define it's what it is: a suddenly vibration on the surface and or shaking of the sudden shaking of the surface, and it developed due to suddenly release of energy, and where it comes from, this energy coming from the lithosphere, and this energy release in the form of waves, so that wave is called as seismic wave. Earthquake can range in size from those that are so weak that they cannot be felt to those violent enough to propel objects and people into the air, and the weak destruction across the entire cities. The seismicity or seismic activity of an area is the frequency, type, and size of earthquake experience over a period of time. You just remember here one thing: sudden vibration which will develop on the earth's surface, and sudden vibration, and that vibration we call as earthquake, and this vibration is developed due to suddenly release of energy, and energy is coming from below the surface of the earth, with that particular area we call as lithosphere. So remember, before going towards the terminology of the earthquake or understanding of the earthquake terminology, you must watch my video causes of the earthquake and effect of the earthquake, so you can better understand. Just little bit explaining your causes of the earthquake. Different pressure and trace are developed within the earth due to plate tectonic movement. Because of different pressure and traces within the earth, whatever the rock layer are present get compressed, and it can sustain the certain pressure, but at particular pressure can't sustain, or it can't bear the particular pressure. At that time it and break and get displaced, and this displacement we call it as a faulting. See, this is layer, and because of pressure it get break and displace, and the displacement we call as faulting. We need displayed or it grade because it doesn't bear certain amount of load or certain amount of pressure. Because of certain amount of trace or pressure, it get break and displace. Rock layer get displaced. This process we call as faulting. But when it displays, that time it release energy which were stored in that particular rock, and this release energy in the form of wave, and it release energy in the form of wave, and that will create vibration on the surface. So this whole activity called as earthquake, and these waves are originated from particular point, and that particular point we call as focus. And when these waves reach the surface at particular point, that point we call as epicenter. So because of different pressure or trace, whatever the rock layer surface get break and displace and release energy from particular point, and this release energy in the form of wave, and release energy from particular point, that point called as focus, and or either called as hypocenter. And this energy reaches to the surface at particular point, that point called as epicenter. So see, this is the fault line where this block and this block get displaced. This block and this block gets displaced, and this is called as fault line, and this particular surface present, this is called as fault plane, and where energy release, that point called as focus, and where energy reaches up to the surface at particular point, that called as epicenter. See the terminology. See, fault line, focus, where earthquake energy is released, or at particular point above this focus, where firstly release energy rich in the form of wave, that is called as epicenter. See epicenter, it is the point on the surface of the earth vertically above the place of origin, or hypocenter, it is a point where vertically above the place of origin or hypocenter. See this diagram, it is a fault plane, and here energy is released at this particular point, and energy released in the form of wave, and it reaches up to surface up at particular this point which is present above the focus, and this is called, that point is called as epicenter. See, it is the point on the surface of the earth vertically above the place of origin, hypocenter of an earthquake. This point expressed by its geographical latitude and longitude. Hypocenter of focus, it is a point within the earth from where a seismic wave originates. And next is the point is focal depth. It is focal depth, it is vertical distance between the focus and epicenter, called as focal depth. Remember, at particular point where energy is released, that point is focus, and at particular point where firstly wave reaches on the surface, that point is epicenter. Focus also called as hypocenter, and distance between epicenter and focus called as focal depth. Always focus epicenter present above the focus. Then earthquake fault, so this rock layer and get displaced, so this is the faulting take place before the earthquake. So faulting is one of the causes for earthquake. So obviously fault plane and faults are developed. So earthquake faults are fracture where displacement in either side relatively to one another relatively one another and parallel to the fractures. See, displacement which is parallel to the fractures. He is going more here and he is going more. So this is the displacement which is parallel to the fractures. And then next is a fault plane. It is a planar surface along which two blocks of earth crust suddenly slip past one another and during an earthquake. So this is the one fracture is developed and displacement take place parallel to this, either sliding over or either move down or either move up. This is the earthquake fault, and this is the planar surface where this block is get down or this block is remain at this position. So this is the fault plane. During all this activity of earthquake, energy release, and this energy release in the form of wave. So, and that wave generate vibration, and this whole activity we call it as an earthquake. So this energy release, that energy we call as seismic wave, or also called as earthquake wave. It is a seismic vibration that move through the Earth's interior. They classify into primary wave, secondary wave, surface wave. It means what? Whatever the rock layer get break because it doesn't contain certain amount of load, and it releases energy in the form of wave, and that wave create vibration on the surface, and so whole activity we call as an earthquake. So release energy in the form of wave, so that wave is called as seismic wave or also called as earthquake wave. So that waves are primary wave, secondary wave and surface wave, in which primary wave and secondary wave moving internally and surface wave move along the surface, and it causes more destruction on the surface. So L wave, whatever the effect of earthquake we have seen on the earth crust, it totally because of impact of surface wave or also called as L wave. Primary wave or P wave. Push pull wave, also called as push pull wave. Wave move back and forth in the direction in which wave is traveling. So moment of the wave is a direction of the wave is parallel to the wave of propagation. Change the both volume. When wave is travel in particular medium, change the both volume and shape of the material in which they pass. Affect and can pass through solid, liquid and gases, as they all exhibit resistance to change in volume. It's P wave travel in all medium, liquid, gases and solid, because all exhibit resistance to change in the volume. Also called longitudinal wave, wave motion and is parallel to direction of travel. Example, according motion and form. See, this is the P wave. This is P wave in which it is parallel, which is the movement of the wave is parallel to the wave of propagation. Because of this, if any stone here you place on this particular place and pass this P wave, what happens? This stone move ahead and move back, means it push and pull activity take place. So that's why when P wave travel to the Earth's interior, whatever the material present on the Earth get push or pull. Then next is the secondary wave, also called as S wave. It is a vibration occurring at right angle to the direction of wave of propagation. They are shake wave or shear wave vibrating side to side. They are not as fast as a P wave, resulting changing only shape of the material they travel through. Affect and can pass through only a solid material. Obviously, if we need material pass through particular medium, it change the shape of that material. So water doesn't have shape, so it doesn't travel to the liquid material. It travel only in the solid material, and also called a transfer wave, wave motion, and is perpendicular to direction of travel. Spring bobbing up and down. So this is the rock material, and if S wave is moving on this rock material, then what happened? This rock material move up and down, move up and down. This type of activity take place. Then next is the L waves, also called as surface wave. They are also called as love wave, long wave, and relay wave. These waves are generated by energy brought to the surface by P and S wave. It confined to outer skin of the crust, and it is also called as surface wave. These have much greater wavelength than P and S wave. Their intensity decreases with depth, and it produces more ground movement and are responsible for the more destructive force of earthquake. When SPVs move, basically SPVs move along the surface also, but when intensity decrease depth, it produces more ground movement and responsible for the earthquake. So L wave also causes earthquake, and L wave moving along the surface and causes more destruction on the surface. See here, there are two terminologies or two concepts here: foreshock and aftershock. Foreshock, after. Shock is major earthquakes. So small earthquake develop before the major earthquake. Then this is called as foreshock. And aftershock, small earthquake is developed after the major earthquake. Then this is called as aftershock. Foreshock, these are the small earthquake in the same area as the following large earthquake. Until the large earthquake hits, scientists are unable to predict if they are foreshock. After large shock, we can conclude that small earthquake was foreshock. Before that, we cannot. Aftershock, smaller earthquake that occur after the main earthquake in the same place as the main shock. Aftershock are linked to the size of the main shock, and if this is large, can continue of many weeks or months or years. Smaller earthquake that occur after the main earthquake in the same place, and this is called as main shock. Aftershock are linked to the size of the main shock, and its large can continue for many weeks or months and years. Thank you.